Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily. I'm Nathan Fox. That's Ben Olson. We're the founders of LSATdemon.com and our weekly podcast, Thinking LSAT. We have an email here from Grace.
Hi there. Hi there. We got two hi there's. New student. In my drilling, I'm noticing a pattern in my first instinct decision making. Okay. A pattern. I am just starting, so sometimes I don't fully understand why the correct answer is truly correct. I can't entirely explain it in my own words, but I have a hunch or a muscle I'm developing through repeated drills. In several cases, my first answer is correct, but I change it because I think it could never have been that easy. I change my answer and get it wrong. Is there a science to trusting your first answer? Am I actually understanding what's correct versus incorrect only without the expert vocabulary to fully articulate my reasoning this early on? For context, when I was studying for the SATs, my tutor told me to trust my first answer choice, wondering if the logic applies to the LSAT. Love the pod.
3 responses to that. First, don't care what your SAT tutor told you about any test. Forget about all that. They're not LSAT experts. I'm not sure whether trusting your first instinct is the correct answer for the SAT. It might be, but I would never tell anybody trust your first instinct on the LSAT.
Mm-hmm.
That's not part of our analysis. You need to do legal work. Legal work is about the details. Find the correct answer, eliminate the wrong answers, understand why the right answer answers the question, understand why most of the wrong answers don't answer the question. Many of the wrong answers are just going to be a complete whiff, so you're going to write them off without really thinking about it very much. But some of the wrong answers are going to be real close, and you need to see why they are conclusively wrong to make sure that you're turning zeros into ones, one question at a time. 1 point, then another point, then another point. So I'm never going to tell you, trust your first instinct. I am going to tell you, though, that it is true that you probably understand more about the test than you think because the LSAT is essentially easy. They're asking you questions that are answerable based only on the words that are on the page. You don't require outside knowledge. You don't require expert vocabulary in order to solve these questions. There are people who right out of the box score 165 on this test. And they do that by simply reading what's there and solving each question one at a time. So it sounds like you've got a little bit of imposter bias here, or is that what it's called? Imposter syndrome. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, like imposter syndrome, where you're like, oh, it can't be that easy, so let me pick this other answer that I don't understand. Now, I'm not telling you trust your first instinct, but I am telling you it is never correct to say it can't be that easy, because it is that easy in most cases.
Yeah.
Last thing I wanted to say is I did want to talk about selection bias here, because it is this sense that I am always changing from the right answer to a wrong answer. That impression comes about because you look more intensely at your mistakes than you do at your correct answers. So what you're not recognizing, Grace, is that you are also frequently changing from a wrong answer to a right answer. But in your review, you go, oh, I got that one right. Great. And you don't even look at it. You look at your mistakes. And yeah, on your mistakes, sometimes you're going to have changed from a right answer to a wrong answer. But that doesn't mean that you're wrong every time you change. It just means that there's a selection bias in the questions that you are interested in, because you should be interested in your mistakes. But don't make the mistake of thinking, oh, I always change it to the wrong answer. I should never change my answer, because you will miss more questions that way. Anything you want to add for Grace?
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I also think that when people, this is a very common question. People are wondering, oh, should I go with my gut or not? And I want to say that when you're thinking that way, I think you're in a mode of test taking that's not where you want to be, in the sense that there's a spectrum. You can either be a proactive test taker or you can be a passive test taker. A proactive test taker on the other end of the spectrum is going to read the argument. They're going to understand exactly what's going on with it, why it's good, why it's bad. And then they're going to go into the question. And as soon as the question asks them whatever it's going to ask, they're going to then generate a response to that because of their understanding of the passage. They're proactively predicting where the test is going. it
Yeah.
sounds to me like you're still in that passive phase where you've read the passage, you read the question, and then you're going through the answers and saying, okay, help me out. Oh yeah. Oh, that sounds like that could be a problem. And then
Yeah.
your gut is telling you to pick it, but you're not in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And so I
LSAT
want you to
demon
get there.
teacher LSAT demon teacher Robert said something really interesting in his Slack notes yesterday.
Mm.
And I complimented him on it and told him I was going to steal it. And then he later said, well, I think I got it from you from one of the podcasts. I don't remember ever saying this. Maybe you said it, Ben, or maybe Robert actually invented it himself and just doesn't realize how astute he is. But he said that when we go into the answer choices, we should be on a quest, not an exploration.
Mm, mhm.
And I think that that is a nice way of teaching that you should be trying to predict the answer to these questions.
Yeah.
If you're not already predicting the answer to at least half of the questions, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it the hard way. You're going into A like, oh, let's see what A says and let's see what B says. And I'm going to explore all five of these answers and then hopefully one of them will click. That's not it. They
Mhm.
gave you a record. They asked you a specific question about that record. Can you think about, independent of the answer choices, can you think about what a good answer to that question might be? And then you're on a quest going through the answer choices. You read A, it looks wrong to you. It's probably wrong. It's wrong
Yeah.
80% of the time. If you're on a quest and it isn't seeming like the goal of your quest, then you clearly just pass along, right? You don't have to go into every inn and every cave along your journey on your quest because you're like, that looks like a waste of time. That looks
Yeah.
like a waste of time. Let me keep going. Now, if you get through all five and you don't find the thing that you were questing for, then you might need to go back and explore some of those side paths. You might have to dig more into those wrong answers. But if you have an idea what you're looking for, you should go through the answer choices relatively quickly looking for that answer. And if you find it, if you're sure it says what you want it to say, not just some words that you think you like, but all the words in that answer, if it seems like it's answering the question correctly, yeah, that's probably the answer. Don't waste your time with these other. Look at each wrong answer briefly just to make sure that they're not like even better than what you are about to pick, but don't waste time trying to talk yourself into those wrong answers.
I'm gonna
Have you
take
heard that before? A
No,
quest, not an
no, I haven't.
exploration?
No, I like it. And I want to take it a little bit further because
Okay.
people can go too far, right? They can say, okay, I'm on a quest. I'm looking for a particular type of castle.
Yeah.
And you go, no, no, no. Look, you're looking for a castle. You're going through your quest. You see some sort of fortress. You say, wait a sec. Okay, that could do the job. And then maybe that's the right answer, right? Because it
Right.
achieves the goal. And sometimes people get so focused, like, no, no, I'm looking for a castle. And they just bypass answers that also work.
Yeah. I get what you're saying there that you do. But again, I guess I would push back a little bit because there's not that much of a cost to walking past the front door and then looking at the other things because you might realize, like, okay, well, that one's a cave and that one's an inn and that one is a beach or whatever.
Yeah.
I was looking for a castle. Maybe it was that fortress after all.
Mm-hmm.
And you might, it's not that hard to circle back, right, to that
Mm-hmm.
other answer. So have an idea what you're looking for. Go on that quest. Don't waste too much time trying to talk yourself into, oh, maybe that beach is the castle that I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? But
Yeah,
if,
there's some degree. I'm just
yeah,
trying to avoid that other side of the problem where people get into where they're like, I predicted exactly this and I didn't find it and I don't know what the answer is now. And it's like, well, you're not really, you have to be a little flexible.
you do have to be a little bit flexible. I would rather that you're more flexible after eliminating all five, right? Like you should be pretty quick to pass on answer choices on the first read through because every answer is again going to be wrong 80% of the time. And if you start reading it and it looks wrong, well then now it's probably wrong more than 80% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And at least as a first pass through the answers, you shouldn't be like going down every rabbit hole because that's
Yeah.
a really common mistake that people make. Should we take it back to Grace? I don't think, Grace, that you need to trust your first instinct more.
No, I think
because
you need to invest more in the passage.
right. And you need to invest more in the answer that you're about to pick.
Hmm.
I mean, people think like, oh, well, I thought it couldn't be that easy, so I switched to this other answer. Yeah, but that other answer doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
Like read it again. It doesn't make sense. It incorrectly answers the question. So the idea that like, oh, well, I couldn't pick that one because it seemed too easy, so I had to pick this other one that doesn't even make sense. You know that's not right. So for sure, stop doing that. But that's not the same thing as trust your first instinct. You do have to read and understand that answer that you're about to pick. And a lot of times, though, it will match what you were able to predict and it'll feel like, oh, yeah, makes total sense. That's my first instinct. Well, yeah, it's probably correct.
Yeah.
But you do need to read the whole thing and vouch for it. And you also need to scan the other wrong answers and make sure they're wrong or make sure that they at least don't seem right. You know, and then go ahead and confidently pick what you were about to pick and move on to the next question.
Thanks for writing in, Grace. Keep us posted. Email daily at lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.